If you got a COVID EIDL back in the early days of the pandemic, very likely you received the $10,000 grant that was part of the program. If you did not receive the grant, maybe you received a portion of the grant, as we did for our business. Many people did not receive the grant money at all, and we have listened and heard and read their comments and complaints for years about how they should have gotten the grant, which seems to me like people were looking for free money. But here's a comment we got in one of our videos recently. If you find the information helpful, would you please consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the like button, hitting the bell for notifications. We don't upload a lot of videos, so we're not going to harass you. Would you please share our video with someone you know who has a COVID loan, who might need some of the information that we provide here on YouTube to give you expert insights on how the program works and responsibilities, restrictions, requirements. If our videos are not enough help for you, consider the do-it-yourself DIY approach and purchase our EIDL Resource Hub, which you can find by clicking on the link in the description. Brad P., who says, this had everything to do with this mismanagement of the EIDL loans. I only took the loan because I was under the impression that the mandated EIDL $10,000 grants would cover the small loan I took in order to understand the process for my clients that needed to take those loans. The SBA changed the rules on that grant, and I'm stuck with a small loan, but some of my clients are stuck with bigger loans that they really can't pay back. The most is around $40,000. I just want the SBA to make good on the $10,000 grants that were legislated. Well, let's start with the end and go backwards. The SBA can't go and give you grants because they ran out of money. And even here you say, I want the SBA to make good on the $10,000 grants that were legislated. They were legislated by Congress. So you're talking to the wrong people. You need to speak to Congress, who I'm pretty sure in the year 2025 does not really have the interest, temperament, appetite to revisit pandemic lockdowns and the CARES Act, which required all this money to be infused into the American economy, of which you, Brad, and your clients apparently took advantage of that. The SBA ran out of money early on in the pandemic. I don't know how you expect them to revisit something that has long been exhausted of funds. And I'm not sure what you mean here when you say the SBA changed the rules on that grant. Do you mean the targeted advance grant? Because that was a separate part of the program. And I would remind you that the SBA changed the rules on that grant because ℬ𝒟𝒻𝒮, who was the SBA administrator at the time, later on admitted in testimony to Congress that she throttled, strangled, reduced the amount of money that they were giving out because she was concerned that the SBA would run out of money, which they did. But you see, here's the funny thing about the SBA and that whole money thing. Instead of her throttling the grants and reducing the grants, if you remember, it was $10,000 originally, and the SBA arbitrarily changed it to $1,000 per employee. So yeah, they did change the rules. What she should have done was gone back to Congress and asked for more money because of the demand. There's that thing again you see about Congress asking Congress for help. So that's the last two sentences. Again, I said I'm going to start from the end and work backwards. So the next sentence before that, I only took the loan because I was under the impression that the mandated $10,000 grant would cover the small loan I took in order to understand the process for my clients that need to make this. It sounds to me that you're admitting to potentially, well, certainly unethical activity and possibly fraudulent activity. Because you see, what you're saying here is you applied for the EIDL. And for those of you who may not remember or who don't know, because this is 5 years later after all, literally this month, March 2025, 5 years later. For those of you who don't remember, don't know, when the program was legislated by Congress and then implemented by the Small Business Administration, you had to apply for a COVID EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, a loan, and then as a component of applying for the loan, you would be given the grant. You could not just apply for the grant. So a couple of things to unpack here. The program was very clear that you should only apply for the loan if you need the money, not for the purpose of, quote, to understand the process for my clients that needed to take those loans, end quote. If you took that loan so that you could get the grant and use the grant to pay off the loan you took so you could understand the process, definitely unethical in my opinion, and potentially fraudulent. Because you see what you're saying there is, you're not saying I needed the money because my business was locked down, because I wanted to keep my employees paid, because business was reduced. You're not saying that. You're saying you wanted to use the monies for purposes that are really not aligned with the program. The other thing here is understand the process, and SBA changed the rules on that grant, and I'm stuck with a small loan, but some of my clients are stuck with bigger loans that they really can't pay back. The most is around $40,000. This statement here gives me concern. You're saying that some of my clients are stuck with bigger loans that they really can't pay back. The most is around $40,000. So a couple of things to process here. They can't pay it back. Why? We are 5 years out. Let's do some math here. Clearly, from your comment, it sounds like you and your clients got these loans in the early days of the pandemic, which would have been March, April, May, June of 2020, which is 5 years ago. How is it that they can't pay it back? The SBA gave them multiple deferment periods to determine a plan for repaying the loan. Number two, in the loan agreement, it gave you the monthly payment. So before you signed the loan agreement, before your client signed the loan agreement, maybe you should have explained to them, this is a loan and this is the payment. That's how I did it with the hundreds of clients that hired us, that we helped them to get approved for the program. When a client got their loan approval, before they would sign the loan agreement, I required that they did a phone conference with me so that I could explain the terms of the loan and clarify that they understood the terms of the loan. I would discuss the total loan amount, the loan term, which is 30 years, the interest rate, which for a profit business was 3.75%, fixed rate, and the monthly payment, no prepayment penalty, and other basic requirements about the program. And I would ask the client, do you wish to proceed with taking the loan? And then they would understand the terms. When someone says to us, in your case, some of my clients are stuck with bigger loans they really can't pay back. Why did they take the loan in the first place? I'm not talking about people who claim they haven't recovered from the pandemic yet. We're going to talk about that in a different video. But these loans, according to your comment here, are very small. You say the most is around $40,000. Well, the monthly payment on a $40,000 COVID EIDL for a 30-year fixed rate of 3.75% is about $195 a month. And if I come off sounding kind of arrogant, yeah, because I was a lender for 30 years where I sat with people who wanted to buy a house, and I would ask them, here's the monthly payment. Are you going to be able to afford that? Before we put the application in, before you sign the contract, before you buy the house. I did this for decades, these conversations. I did this during the pandemic, these conversations. Did you have these conversations, Brad, with your clients? Because if you are now saying they can't pay back and their loans are so small, for $195 a month approximately, what kind of advice are you giving them on recovering from the pandemic? They, on their own, without your advice, they have had plenty of time to figure out an action plan for repayment of the loan. You know, deferment period where they could work on the number one failing that we see with businesses, which is marketing, going out and finding more business. And if your business has dried up, as you will see in another video we're going to do where we're addressing a comment where the business owner owns a specialty pet store, and in the state where they're located, the state just changed the rules that they are no longer allowed to sell those types of animals through their pet store. So in that case, and they claim they're in business 30 years, in that case or similar situation like that, then you have to make a decision to either close the business altogether or pivot. Find other ways, because it's a loan that you took for $40,000 or less, because you say that $40,000 is the max. What was the action plan? You had time to come up with marketing to find more customers, more revenue, which again, that is the number one failing that we have seen time and time again when people reach out to us and we hear that they're struggling and we ask questions like, well, what are you doing? And these are folks who can't even spell Instagram. Mind-blowing. Secondly, what have they done in this last 5 years since they got the loan to work on cash flow management, to find a way? I got a reprieve from the SBA. They took 6 months was the original, a 12-month deferment period, and they made it 24 months. Now it's 30-month deferment period, nearly 3 years of deferred payments to come up with a plan for cash flow management, to find money on the bottom line to pay off a debt that helped save your business during the pandemic. And number three, in that time, if they realized I won't be able to pay this debt back, they could have closed the business, filed bankruptcy, made the debt go away. 3 different options, 5 years to work out a strategy on repayment or closing the business or a pivot or finding more revenue. And I'm going to say the really nasty thing, what kind of advisor are you, dude, that you are not giving your clients the kind of advice they need to hear like this that I'm sharing about a loan that they took? I'm going to add a 4th thing to what those clients should have done in the 5 years. They should have fired you, Brad, and hired a different advisor, because I've had the same conversations with people that we helped to get approved for the loans, people that hired us for 1-hour consultation calls, for other processes about managing the debt. I've had these conversations because as a small business consultant, as a small business financing consultant, that's my job, is to give them cogent advice that they can use to be successful. Or in the case of a person who is not a client, but a longtime viewer of our YouTube channel, who has purchased our guidebook and who is a very loyal visitor to our YouTube channel. I did a phone call with him 2 weeks ago because he got a very distressing letter from the SBA. And I helped him sort some things out about that. And I said to him, what are you doing, man? His revenue coming in every month equaled the full payment for the COVID EIDL. He was on hardship, but now the payments are going back up and he can't afford it. Why are you struggling to pay back a debt when in your case, in his case with the revenue, there's no way to improve marketing to bring in more revenue. There's no way to improve cash management to find more money by reducing other expenses and so forth. It is what it is. The revenue coming in basically equals the full monthly payment, and he's not getting any money in his pocket. He has other income streams, thankfully. But I said, why are you struggling to repay this debt? The COVID EIDL, according to attorneys we have seen here on YouTube, can absolutely be included in bankruptcy. And I said to him, the advice I gave to him, Brad, which is the advice you should be giving to some of your clients as an advisor, have that, heart to heart, the conversation. Share with them the words that nobody wants to hear. You got to close it down. You have to file bankruptcy and walk away and get this debt off your back. Why are you losing sleep at night? Why are you struggling to pay a loan that you can't repay? There are options. By the way, forgiveness is not one of those options. It's never going to happen. Look at our other videos going back 5 years. I've been saying that for 5 years. And number 2, offer in compromise is not available for the COVID EIDL program. It is available for other SBA programs. And if you call SBA and you request offer in compromise paperwork, depending on the knucklehead you get on the phone, she's either going to send you the paperwork because you asked for it, even though they don't allow offer in compromise for a COVID EIDL, or she's going to say to you, there's no offer in compromise available for this program. There's no paperwork I'm going to send you because it's not allowed. But as an advisor to your clients, how are you servicing them? How are you serving their best interest when you comment like this? Wow. Brad, did you give your clients the advice? So you say the maximum loan was around $40,000, payment about $195. So let's just use that one as the example. Did you give that client or those clients with the $40,000 loans the advice to apply for the hardship accommodation program, which would have reduced their payments from $195 to $25 for 6 months, and then you could request an extension for another 6 months. So for a full year after they've entered repayment period, after the deferment, 30 months deferment has ended, they could get another full year of paying only $25 a month. And listen, if you can't find $200 a month to pay off a debt, you got serious problems with your business. You're not really a business owner. You're an employee who owns a job. Sorry, I said it, and we say things like that all the time. We pride ourselves on saying the brutal truth here on our channel. And if you're going to come into our comments and chastise me for making those brutal comments, I'm sorry, but you don't live in the jungle of the real world, of the business world. You're living in fantasy land, a lot like this guy who took the loan so he can get a grant to learn about the program because he was going to use the grant to repay the loan, and he can't even give his clients enough advice to help them navigate. He can't even give them the advice to help lower their payments to $25 a month. How many products or services do you have to sell to come up with $25 for a year? And then after those first two accommodation periods end at $25, the payment would go up to 50%. So if the regular payment is $195, your new payment's going to be around $90, $80, $90 or so, right? I'm not doing the math. I'm sorry. It's late in the afternoon. I want to drink my tea and I want to watch Dune. How much do you have to sell? How much work do you have to do, products or services, to come up with $80 or $90 a month? And what kind of advice are you giving, Brad, to your clients to guide them that they don't even seem to understand the hardship program? Where are you getting your information from? Because it appears that you kind of look for shortcuts. One thing that I will tell you, Linda, Ray, and I, that we despise are people who take shortcuts. And they're all out there. I worked with shortcut people in the mortgage business for years. Linda worked with shortcut people in the insurance industry for years. We delve in, dive in, do the work to get the information to inform our knowledge. We do the work, roll up our sleeves to get the experience that we can share to help clients to sell products, sell services, and make money. We don't take shortcuts. Okay, I said I was going to start from the end and work backwards. So the opening sentence, which is the ending sentence for my discussion, my analysis of this comment, is this statement. This had everything to do with the mismanagement of the EIDL loans. Last time I checked, the United States Small Business Administration, without the appropriate and relevant assistance from the United States Congress to hire more people, to expand full-time employees, not contractors. We know they hired contractors during the pandemic, and that was a nightmare. Improve technologies. We're going back to Congress again. Why isn't Congress stepping up and giving the Small Business Administration the tools it needs to avoid a statement such as your statement, Brad, mismanagement of the EIDL loans? Because last time I checked, the Small Business Administration, with its limited resources, managed to get a huge tranche of money out into the American economy, out into the hands of small business owners, out into your hands, Brad, and your clients' hands, and our clients' hands. That was an amazing feat. Look, there's so much else that's wrong with this comment, mostly around the idea of this was a loan, you knew it was a loan, you had plenty of time to come up with a payment plan or other strategies about either repaying it or closing your business or bankruptcy or whatever it's going to take. Plenty of time to come up with those strategies the way a proper business owner does. And I've said this before in our videos that 4 million of these loans approximately went out. But according to the SBA, their constituency here in the United States of small businesses is over 30 million. I think Kelly Loeffler in her recent memo said 34 or 35 million. But only 4 million took the loans. Now, a lot of that might have to do with the program defects and applicant defects of not understanding how to prepare financial statements, upload documents, and all of that, and the program ultimately running out of money. But 4 million. But the other 30 million businesses didn't take the loans? Why? Because they had a plan. Because they who said, this is a crisis, how am I going to get through this without borrowing money from the government? The final thought I have here is, if you and your clients were those freeloader folks who just saw free money, who just saw cheap money, then shame on you and shame on your clients, because you shouldn't have taken the loans. The loans and the grants were meant for businesses who had no other option to survive the pandemic. You should not have taken the money if you didn't need it. You should not have taken the money if you didn't believe you could pay it back. If at the time you believed you could have taken it back, you still had plenty of time to be a real business owner and come up with a plan to manage this loan. Once again, I want to thank you for listening, watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share our video with somebody who needs to hear the blunt truth. Consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notifications bell. If you want to do it yourself and use all of the expert advice that's in my head, click on the link for our EIDL Resource Hub. We no longer offer consulting services. March 13th, I'll be live here on YouTube. Question and answers about EIDL forgiveness, what I call show and tell, a segment about disaster loans. We've got certain disaster areas, including Los Angeles, that are coming up on deadlines. We're already hearing from people who have been declined for loans in South Carolina and North Carolina, Hurricane Helene, and also in California. So I'll cover that. And I'm also going to do a segment on compliance with the COVID EIDL program. I hope you'll join us. I will be here on camera. Linda Ray will be sitting on the couch over there, typing away in the background.